All right, it's that time again. Let's answer some viewer questions. This one comes from Emmanuel. What the heck am I seeing? Am I seeing at all? This movement feels like the entire cosmos rolling on, like the infinite wave of holographic sensation. This is from the video Slow Waves that I released on June 13th. Insights keep going on, although the realization of already reached a final shift into non-abiding, and they seem more destructive and devastating in a way. When the world was seen through, the body came into existence again. After the fear, the world reappeared, completely solid and empty. Since then, it's just an infinite release without direction. But do perceptual shifts continue? There are feelings of disorientation, yet it's freeing at the same time and not a problem. Center keeps going away in a very radical way, and it's absolutely amazing that this is even possible. Could never imagine what it would be like. Like everything is just there because I'm making it up. At the same time, it creates me simultaneously. Isn't it fun? Isn't this a trip? And it does just keep going on and on. It does get clearer too. This is from Mr. Paradise Man. Will you ever come to the UK to teach? Funny you should ask. I'll be there in August. If you check out my website or get on my mailing list, you'll get announcements on all my retreats and so forth. The August one right now is full, but there's a waiting list. You could get on that. All right. This one's from Supersized Good. Hi, Angelo. My partner and I are somehow both in this process, and I'm wondering if you have any recommendations for someone who can hold space for or point for both of us at the same time. I think anyone would probably be happy to do that. There's a couple of different people I recommend or have been referring people out to. One is Chad, one is Chris Guimond, one is Josh. You can find all their info under my various videos and so forth. Also, you can sit with Chad on Sunday mornings if you're anyone that's a donator to the channel. He does Sunday morning sits over Zoom. You can meet him that way as well. All right. Next is Marcus. When the grace of the self is at work, apparent limitation dissolves. For this, attention rests in the source, pure being. This alone is natural contemplation. The question, who am I, is the means to turn attention away from objects and toward the subject, the I thought. This I thought, which has no real existence as a separate entity, dissolves into its source through the constant inquiry. What remains is the true I, the self with a capital S. It is not experienced as an object, but realized as pure being, which lies beyond all experience. This I would call awakening, by the way. This may be a quote. It sounds like it could be Ramana or it could be Nisargadatta. It sounds more like Ramana, but I'm not sure. Since there is no separate doer, the notion of personal action is an illusion. Thus, the outward tendency of the mind ceases. With the disappearance of ignorance, the false separation between inner and outer dissolves as only one self with a capital S is. That last part, the first part sounds like awakening. The last part sounds more like non-duality. But no, it's not no self-realization, distinctly. All right. That's just a comment. They didn't really ask a question. This one's from Hans and Mark. While I agree that there's no substitute for the firsthand experience, and it's crucial not to confuse concepts with experience, I think it can be helpful to know that Kensho awakening is not incompatible with scientific understanding. I agree with you. It's not incompatible. But again, it's like saying a hammer is not incompatible with a picture of a hammer. Try nailing a nail in with a picture of a hammer. I just want to be clear about that. That's why I say this stuff. But anyway, yeah, I agree with you to some degree, right? On the contrary, science is getting better and better at explaining experiences like these. For me, anyway, okay, it is getting better. I quote things. I quote functional MRI studies showing pretty clearly that there is no sense of, that choice is an illusion. There are good neuroanatomy and neurophysiology maps that explain all the various mental faculties and how they perceive space, separation, how they label, how they perceive self, how they perceive other. Like, sure, all that stuff is here, but reading about all of that doesn't wake you up. That's my point. Like, you can understand that stuff, but it's not necessarily waking you up. And to believe it can be its own kind of obstruction, mostly because it requires a pretty deep letting go to wake up. And usually that's what it comes down to. It's not about understanding anything at all. In fact, it's not about understanding the non-materialistic view either. It's not about understanding doctrine. It's about waking up. It's about letting go of the identity with thought and concept. But I've said this a million times, as you know. So this person does continue, though. For me, anyway, it was useful to remove this mental block that maybe this is all some kind of sort of self-delusional BS mumbo jumbo. Yeah, and there's value to that. Like, I have heard people say, I didn't want to meditate until I saw scientific data saying meditation's helpful. It's like, really? Okay. So, sure. Dr. Gil Bolty Taylor's TED Talk describing her unit of experience during a stroke, My Stroke of Insight, is an excellent example of how neurobiology interacts with the awakening or non-dual experience. It does interact, but again, like, watching that video, if you're not inclined to wake up, you probably think it's really cool or really interesting, but it's not going to trigger an awakening necessarily. Maybe it does, though. She's really good at transmitting, actually. She does transmit. She, through her direct description of the experience, not through her description of whether her stroke was parietal or temporal, whatever, right? So it's not the understanding, but there are people who have had awakenings that could be described in scientific ways or because of anatomical issues or whatever. Like, I understand that. Sure, that it's not like they're in two different worlds, but I'm just very careful to point out to people that there is a certain kind of mind that just wants to understand everything so much, and it doesn't realize that the drive to understand is itself a self-protective mechanism. It's your own life preserver keeping you afloat in the duality of the mind, and you have to break that duality. And this is why sometimes people have to go to extremes, like a one-pointed approach, using the koan mu, meditating for weeks on end and years on end in Zen monasteries. The dualistic mind can be that stubborn and sticky, right? This is why I point all this out. At the same time, yeah, all this stuff is interesting. I did interview Jill. She's great. And in my interview, actually, she started describing the non-dual experience she was having in the moment, which I thought was maybe the most helpful part of the video. It's the part that I could feel it. I could feel the transmission from that. Very clear that she has that realization. So, yeah, anyway, thanks for your comment. This one's from Aris. Hi, Angelo. I'm not used to seeing thoughts. I can't seem to stop mind identifying. I'm so used to seeing thoughts. I'm sorry. It feels also almost impossible. Yet I've recently felt what you described as non-dual realization through the visual field. That sense of not being outside or inside. Let's see. What's a good way to stop mind identification after non-dual realization? I thought this would have stopped by now, but it hasn't. They're kind of two different critters, right? Because non-dual realization is not a realization of a new experience. It's the recognition of the complete lack of boundaries in experience, and more to it, of course, than that. But to calm the mind, to clarify the mind, to unload the polarities within consciousness, to me, requires ongoing practice in resting in unbound consciousness. I have a playlist called Consciousness, which gives a million ways to do this. Or not a million, but it gives a lot of pointers on what is that exactly meant by this. And it is something that I find people can take a good amount of time, even in deeper realization, to really get this. Once you do, it's not a problem anymore. You could rest in unbound consciousness all day long because it's about as enjoyable as it gets. And you won't be worried about getting stuck in thoughts or rejecting thoughts or getting identified without realizing it, or all the stickiness of thoughts. This is how you settle all that. Settle it through consciousness, because in consciousness, a thought is consciousness, and consciousness is any given thought. But there's not a dividing or divisive experience there, right? So that's what I recommend. The other thing would be is if there are any vasanas that are being overlooked, any heavy fixations, intense emotional repression that's coming periodically, but we're suppressing it, pushing it away, avoiding it, etc., then it's good to do some shadow work as well. Always be open to that. All right. This one's from Rachel Louise. Respectfully, I find this guy so handsome. Oh, they talking about me? It's from the video called Autism Enlightenment. I'm pretty sure it's his spirit rather than his face, his actual face. Okay, so it's like a backhanded compliment. Just kidding. That was nice of you, thanks. This is from Matt Sweeney. I was meditating in the sun on a canal bank earlier this week, and a family of ducks waddled past. It just felt like they were walking through the very fabric of what I am. Non-duality is awesome, isn't it? It really is. It's a good time. Oh, same commenter, Matt Sweeney. I was wondering about the flat visual field and was hoping that would not happen. When deep in presence, it feels like whatever I take myself to be has somehow stepped into and become the visual experience. Like I exist here and there, still feels three-dimensional, thankfully, as I really don't want to lose that. But just like super vivid HD and intimate, just as described in the video, really, but not always like that. Yeah, you don't always have that flat experience. Not everybody does, for sure. If you do, it's temporary. This is from Femith. Can this process cause high blood pressure? I don't think it directly causes high blood pressure, but you may have periods of repressed material, trauma, or something coming to the surface, which could potentially release some catecholamines for a time. You can get a lot of Kundalini type symptoms and that sort of thing, but over time, it'll all stabilize. All right. This one's from Hearts Ablaze, yo. That was beautiful. She's so lovely, the lady with the shift. They're talking about, this is the video, a very clear non-dual shift demonstrated. There is such an open curiosity and happy innocence which comes across. At the same time, relentless courage. Thank you for sharing. It's a great motivation. That's a good video. If you haven't seen it, check it out. She's describing how the non-dual aspect of her realization has sort of come into fruition and played out. It's pretty wild to listen to. This is from John Doe Band. When I feel mind kicking up again, trying to solve physical sensation or any other problem with thought, I remind myself that is a thinking man's problem. I love that. That's awesome. Okay. I'm going to finish there for now, but I'll pick up some more questions later. So I appreciate y'all. Thanks for leaving the questions. I do read them, most of them, and try to answer when I can, as many as I can. But thank you for your viewership, your comments, and your likes and subscribes and all that stuff. All right.